Amon Tobin ISAM.
Whew. Hi everyone, Anthony Fantano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, going to do an album review of something that I'm pretty excited to talk about, the new Amon Tobin album, ISAM. Hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly. This guy is a Brazilian music producer whose discography spans all the way back to the mid-90s and helped to define drum and bass with his early work like bricolage and permutation. But that is just stuff I am finding out in my research. I am just getting into his music now in preparation for this review. I am not an Amon Tobin expert. And now that I go back and listen to that early Tobin stuff, it's kind of refreshing, because it's not like his music was a mixture of electronics and jazz fusion like Squarepusher was doing. He was going directly to jazz to find samples and breakbeats that he'd put a lot of original electronics over. Some interesting stuff. But as I climbed further up this dude's discography, it became clearer to me that I think ISAM is going to go down as a bit of a black sheep in the Tobin canon. This guy's last couple of releases have been kind of dark and atmospheric, but I think even this is so far out there that it might sucker punch longtime fans. Plus, this thing is so experimental, it would be difficult for people who are new to Tobin to jump on the bandwagon at this point. There are some moments on this LP where the sounds and the textures remind me of this guy's earlier work like Dio or Golfer versus Boxer from Super Modified, Rosie's from Out Where, or even Big Furry Head from Foley's Room. But the drum and bass influences that Tobin usually brings to the table on his releases, just wave goodbye to them. Because tempo, melody, structure, straightforwardness, and maybe even accessibility, all of those are suffocated at the hand of sound. Just experimenting, tinkering, and crafting sounds. Not crafting songs, but crafting, sculpting, envisioning sounds. I'm just so impressed by the variety and also the quality of the textures on this album, because this thing did bend my mind a little bit. And this thing is freaking dense too. Take the first track, Journeyman. Since this album has been streaming online, I've listened to that song over and over and over and over. And I don't think I've picked up every sonic detail of it yet. And it's so difficult to describe all of the sounds that I'm hearing. I rack my brain, and I really don't think I could do the song's justice by talking. I'm hearing plinks and plonks and clinks, hums and clicks, and little shots of distortion, slurps and booms, and these thick low-end bass hits that sound like they've come straight out of a dubstep song. They kind of sound like a wub that doesn't wub. It just kind of stops at wub. And sometimes these tracks just fall in and out of tempo too. And I like that. To me, tempo is good, but it can be a little boring sometimes. Always hearing things that always have tempo. I like it when an artist can let go of tempo for a little bit, wander into a heavy interlude, sort of get rid of those training wheels and get rid of the safety net and really see what happens. The biggest records I've ever heard have been like post-rock records, doom metal records, drone metal records, the kind of music that uses atmosphere and volume to portray size, a mountainous size. And not every track here tries to sound big, but the ones that do sound big, like Earth crashing into the sun big. But ultimately my major gripe and my only real issue with this album is inconsistency. But it's kind of an intentional inconsistency, because this album morphs from one mood to another around its halfway point. Basically all these dense, heavy, weird, abstract instrumentals fade into this plinkety, plunkety, children's-esque tune where I kind of envision Hello Kitty figurines dancing in circles together. And it does have some eeriness to it, but it really isn't what I prefer. I liked the darker, weirder sounds on the first half of this album. And they are still kind of there on the last third of this LP, just rumbling and hissing away in the background. But the mood has definitely changed in a way that I don't like all that much. It hasn't gone completely friendly, completely cutesy, but kitty kitty cat. And a lot of the melodies and textures kind of stay cuter and friendlier after Kitty Cat comes on. And not that those tracks are bad, I just think that the last third of this album and the first 2/3 kind of represent these two completely different sounds that really don't complement each other all that well. But despite me not being into the latter part of this LP, I still think Tobin has pulled together some of the most interesting sounds of his career and put them on ISAM. I'm feeling a decent to strong 7 on this LP. It's really, really good. I'm not in love with it as a whole, but there are definitely some of my favorite tracks of 2011 on that first part of this album. But what do you think? Do you love this thing? Do you hate it? Why? And what do you think I should review next? Anthony Fantano, Amon Tobin, ISAM, forever.